Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds. Welcome to Screamplay, a show about spooky video games. With your hosts, Tom and John Ryman. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Screamplay, the show about spooky video games. We're the brothers Ryman. I'm Tom. You're John.
Am I?
Think.
Okay.
I believe.
I'll be John today.
Yeah, you can be John today. We should switch.
Dude, I don't know if you're prepared for that.
The medium of radio is the only time we'll ever get to Parent Trap anyone.
You'll miss the hair and the lightness on your feet.
It'd be like a remedial Pokemon transformation.
I'm definitely what am I? A Jigglypuff. I just fall asleep in the middle of nowhere.
I don't know enough Pokemon to know what I would be. Like, I feel like I understand Jigglypuff.
He just falls asleep.
Yeah, I feel like they've got it figured out. Just lay down in the middle of the fight. Like, I don't want to figure any of this stuff out. All of my good old cards are no longer tournament legal. I'm just gonna sleep in the middle of the match. We should probably get started talking about the game that we're going to talk about. That is the subject of this episode. Because we could talk about other games all day long, but we came here to talk about one very specific one, and that is 2024's Alone in the Dark. This is a remake of an old point-and-click style adventure game, but it's also like the fifth remake, I think. This is a property that has been remade many, many times since it first debuted in the early 90s on PC.
Which we played.
Is off. Yeah, we did. We did play it. Yeah, I remember playing that one, and it was really freaking hard. It was sort of like the precursor to Resident Evil. It was very much like Resident Evil with fixed camera angles.
It directly inspired Resident Evil. He cited that as one of the influences on it.
Mm-hmm. Resident Evil was just very visibly the next iteration of it.
Right.
I mean, Resident Evil sort of became more notorious for its obtuse puzzles, but if you played adventure games like Alone in the Dark in the 90s, that's just, I mean, and of course, if you listen to our episode about the Seventh Guest with Drew, all of those games were like this. Did you ever interact with any of the other Alone in the Dark remakes?
No, but what I was going to put on that was like the constant remaking of this is just like the meme of Homer trying to eat chips, and the Greyhound puppies just keep
102 Dalmatians or whatever.
This time.
This time. Here's a quarter. Call someone who cares.
Yeah.
Oh no, here's a phone. Call someone who cares.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, it's like they keep whiffing on these, and this one is, I don't know.
We'll get to it. So I guess we should we? Well, we've said what the game is. Who wants to tell this scary story? I guess it was my decision to do this game. Should I tell the story, or what do you want to do?
I'll do it this time. We're
rolling out our bedrolls, roasting some mallows in front of Spookaboo Manor.
We're roasting some mallows. I'm drinking my 5th glass of scotch. He drinks so much in this game.
Oh, Edward?
Yeah, we're in our Model T, rumbling down the bayou dirt roads.
Our hand crank car.
Yeah.
There's no seatbelts or shock suspension, so we feel every bump in the road.
Yep. Our heavy piece of metal on bicycle tires.
It's just a Hulk on thin little bike tires.
We had to restart it because I hit a frog in the highway, and basically made us careen out into the swamp.
Blew out the axle.
Yeah, blew out the axle, yeah. Desert, I think, is the name of the manor. Is off in the distance, Deserto. And we have some time, so I'm going to tell you a scary story.
Well, you might assume we're not going, and we're stuck in the bayou, so you can take the wheel all you want.
So, Alone in the Dark is, like we said, it's a remake of a pretty classic horror H.P. Lovecraft-inspired game. And you can take the role of two investigators, one of the two, rather. You can either be Edward Carnby or Emily, I forget her last name.
Hartwood.
Okay.
Hartwood.
Played by David Harbour and Jodie Comer, respectively. And you are looking for her uncle at this family mansion in the Louisiana Bayou, not far from New Orleans, which has been turned into a mental hospital. You're looking for her missing uncle, and through like clues and diaries and interacting with the weirdos that live in the mansion, you slowly start to unravel that he is lost in time and space, and that the residents of Derceto. God, doddering old man. All right. But yeah, they are trying to resurrect an old elder being, which you might know from literature as Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Woods. It's a pretty standard third-person action game where you collect different weapons from the 20s, like a Tommy gun, shotgun, pistol, etc. You can pick up melee weapons in the field, and you fight boogans. H.P. Lovecraft boogans, which look like people, but they've been messed up and distorted and have dead gray flesh and everything, and takes you through swamps, the French Quarter, old haunted ass mansions, oil fields, etc. And you also collect clues. There's a fair bit of detective work in this game that we'll talk about in the Boneyard. But the end.
Just in time for AAA to drag us out of this bog. That was a bone chiller, man, a real spine tingler.
Speaking of old creepy mansions with maniacs in them, I spy a light. I believe he's a neighbor to Deserto?
Yeah. He's living right next door to Derceto, or Derceto is on it's like the guest house on his property. It's like an Airbnb that he rents out.
Yeah.
They're not keeping it down over there while I'm trying to do my stories.
I told you not to have guests after 10.
Well, let's push open this creaky iron gate, walk up the steps, and into the foyer of Spookaboo Manor. Now I invite you to step inside Spookaboo Manor.
Okay, this is a section where we talk about the scariness, the spookums of the game. And Tom, since you chose it...
The eek-em-ups.
Yeah.
Indeed.
You go first.
This game's not scary.
No, it's not.
Not at all. I love the theme.
Yeah, oh yeah.
That's a thing that I think we've sort of brushed up against that conversation before. And I'll keep my Spookaboo rant fairly brief, since I don't have too much to say. But it's interesting that we haven't really brushed up against that yet. I don't think we have within some of the survival horror games, but like the theme goes a long way with me, sort of like Callisto Protocol, where that game was more visceral and more intense as an actual gameplay experience. This one is not really. It's sort of like playing Arkham Horror, or like any kind of Lovecraft adjacent games that sort of take place in like haunted 20s and 30s. I love that vibe, the cosmic horror early 20th century. So the theme and the setting goes a long way with me. But
right.
As far as being spooky, there's cool stuff. The lore is really cool. All the clues you have to find and the story you get to piece together about the different people that you meet and about Derceto itself is cool.
Yeah.
And creepy. Like the lore, the backstory is creepy. Like that's the closest the game gets to actually being scary, is some creepiness in there.
And I like the setting too, yeah.
The setting is great, but the enemies aren't terribly scary. They're also not very hard to beat. So there's only like 4 different enemy types, and once you've seen them all, it's like none of them are very surprising. There's no real like Mr. X character or like the Regenerator in Dead Space. So there's no like
Right.
heart in your throat moments where you're just being pursued, or no moments of like primal terror like that. It's just, it never really tries very hard to scare you. It's more interested in telling this creepy mystery, which is cool. And even the climax, like it builds up to this climax. That's an awesome climax, but it's the climax of Ready or Not. It's not the climax of a horror movie.
Yeah.
So this is more like Dave has described this kind of genre as like horror adventure or adventure horror.
Right, yeah.
Like a movie like It or like Stranger Things. This is more of a piece with that, where it's like it's very much in the world of horror. The theme is awesome, and it's a horror theme, but it's not actually scary. Rant over. That's my piece on Spookaboos.
I will also say this game is not scary.
Yeah, I didn't think it. Yeah, I was, as soon as I was playing it, like for the first 10 minutes, I was like, we're gonna have a short conversation in Vincent's foyer.
Well, I had hopes when you're looking to open the front door and like you hear like scuttling and like you see like little yellow eyes looking at you from shadows and stuff, and I was like, oh, okay, maybe this is gonna be eerie at least, and it was eerie. Yeah, as far as scares, no, not so much. The enemies look gnarly, but they're only like 3 or 4 types.
Yeah, there's a tunneler, there's like a moss rot person that's your basic zombie enemy, and they talk a lot about this rot that you see growing up all over Derceto, so it's like it's woven within the theme.
It's not particularly scary, but I do like the vibes it's throwing out. Like it does feel like that Alone in the Dark vibe.
I'm gonna hit a lot of that more in the next section, but yeah, for sure, totally agree.
It definitely hit that vibe. I don't know if I should talk about this now or in the next section, but like this game's very forgettable.
Anything about theme or story or atmosphere?
Well, this does feed into that, because this game is
we're spitting hot fire in the foyer as Vincent watches from the landing above. Oh yeah.
This game is very forgettable as far as like story, because it's just like, yeah, it's a pretty good yarn that they're, telling, but it's basic boilerplate H.P. Lovecraft. There's nothing like that
true.
Sets it out from anything.
Yeah, like how many of these games begin with the character receiving a mysterious letter?
Well,
I mean, that's a trope. That sort of like gets at a different conversation, but I see what you're saying.
Yeah, it's been done, and it's just like, oh, okay. I mean, like, I liked it, and I liked the method that you find out about this stuff and that you uncover it through mysteries or solving mysteries and finding clues. But as far as a story goes, it's basically your just standard run-of-the-mill H.P. Lovecraft story. Finding out about the characters and how weird they are and what their backstory is interesting.
Yeah, that was my favorite part of the game, was being the detective.
Yeah, being the detective is the best part of the game on that.
I'll hold on to that, yeah.
Yeah, because that's more boneyard. But yeah, I don't really have much to say about the scares, honestly. They're just not there. And there was no time where I felt like any kind of like dread or anything. It was a little bit in the, I will take that back, a little bit in the oil field, because of the water and the mist and everything. It was hard to see enemies coming, and they had just introduced a new enemy to you and its kind of movements. So yeah, I take that back. The oil field was that's the one part of the game I do remember.
Even with the tunneler guy, like, it's tense once you first are introduced as, oh, this is a new enemy type. How does this thing behave? But like, even if you don't successfully sneak around the tunneler and he pops out of the ground, you kill him so easily.
Yeah, they're not.
So that takes away all the tension of that kind of the cat and mouse stuff with the enemies, because there's seriously only 4 enemy types. They're very easy to dodge. They hit hard if they hit you, but none of them take a particularly great amount of damage if you select the right weapon.
And so they move slow.
They do. They're very easy to dodge. So it's hard to. I never really feel tension in the encounter sequences, for sure.
It's more like, what are they going to surprise me with? Like, what kind of area am I going to go into?
Yeah. Whereas there's a neat mechanic they introduced where you're chasing Jeremy through his dreams, basically, as he's hiding from. Yeah, he's hiding from the dark power, the Nyarlathotep, who is another Lovecraft figure that you find out he makes a deal with to beat Shub-Niggurath, the Black Goat of the Woods.
King in Yellow, isn't it? Or a servant?
Nyarlathotep is, I think it's like the Pharaoh of 1,000 Masks or something.
Okay.
I forget. I think they're related. There's a lot of shit.
Yeah, this is not HP Lovecast.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, Lovecast. HP Lovecast. That's pretty funny.
I know we got to do a podcast now, just because
now we have to do it. Man. I guess we should
trademark it.
HP Lovecast, man. That would actually not be a bad one to do. Let's think about that. Anyway, I did want to say that there's a feeling here before we move on from the Spookaboos. Vincent needs a refill on his brandy. There is an element of deliberate hokiness that I noticed. Did you feel that?
Yeah.
Did you feel that this game was intentionally hokey?
Yeah. In the same way that The Seventh Guest was.
Exactly. So and it's the main thing that made me notice it at first is the music. Because the music this game is very, very modern. It looks like the most recent Resident Evil, like the Resident Evil 3 remake. Oh, I'm sorry, the Resident Evil 4 remake. That's the most recent one. It looks exactly like that.
The Resident Evil 4 remake looks better.
It looks better, but that's what it is modeled after, clearly. It's that kind of third-person action game, and it looks like that sort of modern survival horror game that we're sort of used to seeing. But the music, whereas in like a Resident Evil, is like they go balls out. And they do in a lot of these games because the music is a huge component for horror. In this one, it is still MIDI keyboard music from the early 90s.
Yeah. And it's all like Sam Spade.
Yeah, and when it's not, music. It's like when it's the diegetic stuff, it's like big band jazz or like a speakeasy jazz rather.
Yeah.
So there's this hokey. It really felt like playing the original game in that sense, where it's like, I love the theme of this, and and this is this experience is scratching a particular itch for me, but it's also very goofy, and it is in no danger of scaring me.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to elucidate that thought before we finished up in Spooky Boo Manor.
Yeah, no, it does have that endearing Saturday afternoon movie quality to it.
The presence of the two actors helps.
Like a drive-in.
I wanted to ask you about that because I'm glad we hit on that before we move on from this section because I almost forgot to talk about it.
Yeah.
So you played through as Carnby, as the David Harbour character. I played through
as
Punch Cop. I played through as Jodie Comer, Emily Hartwood. And we talked a little bit about it, about how different the experience is. And it's from what I've read, and we both played a little bit of the other storyline in New Game Plus just to see, it's essentially the same. But the context of the puzzles and your interaction with characters and stuff are different.
Mm-hmm.
And I was curious about the performance that David Harbour gives, because I don't get to see him much in my game. She plays the character in a very interesting way, which is kind of aloof, a little off, never really afraid, sort of like a little bit like an Egon. Not like that nerdy, but a little bit of that almost humorous detachment.
Yeah.
So like it even came through in the performances, sort of lent to that, like, you don't need to be afraid in this game because she's never scared as I was playing as her.
Yeah, David Harbour plays it a lot like John Doggett.
That makes sense, yeah.
From the X-Files. Where it's just like, he's like, I don't know what the fuck is going on, but the evidence is pointing this way, so I need to go this way.
Man.
He seems to be a little bit freaked out about what's happening, but like not like shitting his pants scared or anything. But he plays it like if Jim Hopper was thrown in here. It's just
like the character he's on Stranger Things, yeah. That's probably why you would cast him as that role, yeah.
He's an old gumshoe.
Yeah.
And he doesn't quite know what's happening. He seems to accept it a little bit too quickly for me. But
so does Jodie Comer.
It's not a very long game, so we kind of got to get it moving.
Yeah.
So I can forgive that. But like I said, he just approaches it like a detective. Well, I mean, this talisman has to have something to do with it. That was the funniest thing. He's like, does this talisman mean anything to you? It's the fact that he calls it a talisman.
Yeah. I mean, I was trying to think of like it's the 30s, but like
that was very unnatural.
It's supposed to be like 1931, and he's a PI he was probably in World War I. So you got to remember he's an old timey dude, but like David Harbour is such a modern man, so it's like hard to hear him say something like this talisman mean anything to you.
Yeah. What he really should have said is like, the fuck is this?
Like medallion meaning?
Yeah, like what is this? Like, how did he even know it was a medallion? Didn't have like a talisman.
Probably, I mean, if you
like
saw something like that, you'd call it like this is like the never-ending story thing, right? This is like some kind of medallion or shit, or like a talisman. You'd get to talisman eventually, but like I don't think it'd be your first word.
And it's weird hearing David Harbour
I'm surprised
say,
a guy.
The only thing about this talisman,
yeah, it's solid Harbour. Like someone like you and I would get to talisman in like 2 or 3 words, but like 30s PI. Like global war vet who like the little bit I played, he's like in debt with the mob. Where does his circle of friends come into contact with talismans?
I will say it does talk about him going to this old fortune teller or voodoo priestess in New Orleans on some cases. So, like, that might be how.
That's right. I forgot about that. That's Emily Jodie Comer mentions that, I think, in the beginning when she goes to hire him. And then she has a whole backstory about, like, there's a Hartwood family curse supposedly related to the Dark Man who is Nyarlathotep. So she's, like, more key. She accepts it too quickly for me, too. Like, I had the same thought, but then also forgave it because I was like, oh, okay, we got to get moving. They gave us enough of a reason. Yeah. Like, okay, Harbour's has experience with voodoo, so he kind of knows a little bit about the occult. He's not that weirded by it. And then Comer has come up in it, so she's more used to it. I thought that was interesting, too. Like, they had backstories, individual backstories that you also get to uncover, as well as the main case as you're playing.
I think they each have, like, a quote-unquote sin that they're trying to...
Yeah, it's part of the game.
Deal with.
In order...
That's
you
part
have
of the
to
game, yeah.
It becomes part of this riddle you have to do to beat like Nyarlathotep, who's like the sub boss, I guess, before you fight.
I don't know. I just ran past him in the library. I just ran around.
Yeah, I mean, you don't ever fight him. I meant fight as in like you have to deal with him. That was my piece on that. Yeah, but if there was something,
that's pretty much it. Unless we wanted to go into what their backstories were, but I think you're wanting to play it. Yeah, I'll save that.
That's part of the experience of playing it for sure, and for us to just tell it to you because it's not like it's only a spoiler. Like it doesn't.
Yeah, it doesn't affect. Really,
it's part of your.
There's nothing really pertinent.
No, it's just part of your reward for playing the game. So we can move on.
Yeah.
Besides, Vincent needs to go to bed. I'm on my third brandy.
One too many brandy. Yeah, one too many brandy.
It's like half over the banister now. When are you all leaving so I can go pet my cat?
You don't have a cat, Vincent.
Oh, that's right.
That's not what I'm talking about.
Well, not alive anyway. So let's shuffle on down the steps in our slippies that we're borrowing. Because he's a generous man as
we're
staying in his Airbnb Derceto Manor.
Well, he's not that generous. It's to quiet our steps. We're too loud.
We're waking up. You're waking up my pets.
They'll never get back to sleep now.
Let's root around in the boneyard.
Perhaps now we should go traipsing through the boneyard.
This is where we talk about the gameplay, the actual gameplay mechanics, the experience of playing the game.
Combat sucks.
Yeah, it does. The combat is not very good. I'll begin this section by saying that this game, one of the reasons I wanted us to talk about it is this game had a lot of buzz, got at least 2 conspicuous delays that I am aware of, and then sort of quietly came out at the beginning of this year to very middling reviews. I was really kind of surprised by that because it seemed like even though this property is constantly remade, it felt like, again, the Homer Simpson this time. It felt like this time, like it looked like the original. It looked they were keyed into what sort of grabbed people about the original and why people still remember that game. They had these two big actors behind. They're not major stars, but they're people who people know.
I'd say
certainly
they were
fans
right
of
now.
video
Yeah.
games are fans of these two actors.
Right.
It felt like the production value was there. It looked modern. And they had like that little prologue you can play. That was it was very short, but it was a really interesting tidbit of what the story was going to be. You're like, oh shit, this is really different from what I remember from the original game. So I wanted to sit down and play and see exactly what went wrong, or if it was like sort of, I don't know, just what the story was here. And the main thing that a lot of the reviews were talking about was the combat.
What I will say is that reading the reviews on this, they said this is the better remake to come out.
I have seen that as well.
Because it's more in that vein, and the investigation stuff is fun. But the combat is bad.
It is. It's not great.
We did say that the enemies move slow, but they also kind of surround you. And there's no auto lock on enemies, which I think it would benefit from. And like I just didn't like it. I didn't like it as far as that goes, because it's really like the whole thing is just you can't really aim. You just kind of spray and pray. It's
one of those things where it's sort of like what's its nuts? Callisto Protocol 2, where it's you have to steady your aim and it takes a second for your aim to steady and you don't have an auto lock. And that's part of that old school survival horror design. It feels very unnatural to players today, but I do have to defend it a little bit like I defended it in Callisto. I think I did 2 episodes about that, so I might be getting the conversations mixed up. I know we talked about it, but I also did a one-ups with Adam about it. So it was on one of those 2, probably both those episodes, but I do have to kind of defend the combat a little bit because it's more about... It never felt unfairly broken or hard to me. It's just, I had to engage it in its language, and it's not doing it the same way as most modern games do it. It's doing it in a way that is deliberately making it difficult for you, because that was part of the classic survival horror experience. Your enjoyment of that is going to vary greatly, and whether or not that's an excusable decision to make in a game like this in 2024, that's a different conversation. But I do agree that it's not, even giving the experience that I think it's trying to present, it's not as polished as it could be.
That's my gripe with it, because you brought up Callisto Protocol in a similar game, Dead Space.
Mm-hmm. Dead Space is precision. Like that's the combat in that is pretty laser.
Yeah, but in this one, like I understand like not having an auto lock, but with how this particular game moves, just like the drawing the weapon up and aiming and then trying to shoot, it felt like I was moving faster than the game was, if that makes any sense.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think that was intentional. I think it was because the combat in this game was kind of an afterthought.
Yeah, very much so. I would agree with that. Yeah, it's...
What I think is what happened is that they were like, well, let's put out like a detective game, and, maybe we have some monsters here and there, and we give you a shotgun, but it's really not going to make that much of a difference, like in the original game. And then they were just like, no, gamify this more.
Yeah.
And it's just the combat is just you like I said, going back to Callisto Protocol and Dead Space, the combat systems in both those games are so much cleaner.
That's
and
true.
So much more intuitive. Like you don't need an auto lock for those, because it's just like, okay, like this feels good. I feel comfortable in this. This was like the most uncomfortable in a bad way combat systems, because it's just like, I'm like, this, it just felt weird.
I know what you're saying.
And it just did not feel intuitive at all.
It's very loose and slippery.
Exactly. You get no traction when you're trying to do
and
this
I think it's on purpose, because I found... Because at first I was trying to play it like those games. I was trying to approach combat like you do in Callisto or Dead Space, and you can't. When I figured out that what had worked for me, and it seems like this is the direction the game was pushing me in, because after this point, combat was a non-factor. I did not die until the end boss.
Oh yeah, I mean it's not hard.
It's rarely
just
hard.
not
It's
fun.
rarely hard. It actually got kind of fun for me after a point, but it's like you lean on the dodge. It doesn't seem like there's a cooldown or a meter. You can lean on that dodge pretty liberally, and it is overpowered. You just duck out of the way and
Sure.
you're halfway across the room, and that booger monster's turning around, and it makes the fights where you'll end up you'll dodge. You'll have to scramble around the room for like 5 or 6 seconds, like several seconds, before you're able to get a good spot where you can finally aim and shoot. But I didn't mind that, and that became kind of a fun experience to me once I sort of engaged it the way that the game was. I felt like the game was trying to tell me to, but it does feel so counterintuitive. Like we were saying in Callisto, when compared with modern games and modern third-person action games, it's so counterintuitive to us, to making the smoothest player experience as possible, when that is not always necessarily the goal. Again, I totally agree that this could have been way more polished, and I also totally agree with your assessment that it feels like an afterthought. Do you have anything else specific or other points about the combat you wanted to get into? Because I feel like we've pretty much hit what we've felt.
Yeah,
about it.
I hit what I wanted to hit on it. It just wasn't fun.
I gotcha.
Like the combat in the game for me just wasn't fun.
Did you ever feel like the unfair thumb of the survival horror gods and that I mean? Did you ever feel like you were running out of shit?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Sometimes, like on like some bosses, but then like it didn't come up that much. That's why I didn't bring it up. But like sometimes I'll be like, I have like 2 bullets left, and it takes you so long to reload. Yeah, that'll be the only thing I was gonna like. I didn't really have a problem with the resources, and they give you throwables that I thought was cool, and I thought like
the melee I really liked.
Melee was cool. I love it when you can pick up melee weapons in the environment and just or things in the environment and use them. So like I always think that's a good touch in these games. But
yeah, you can throw lanterns at some of them and shoot them to set them on fire. That was cool.
Or there are Molotovs in the area too that you just pick up and throw. I don't know why they're just Molotovs sitting around. I don't know what fucking section of New Orleans he's in.
French Quarter, man. It's Mardi Gras.
French Quarter, Mardi Gras.
You're going to find a Molotov somewhere.
Instead of beads, they're just like throwing around Molotovs.
How close are they to the Baker farm?
I don't know, but those monsters are going to want to stay away from there.
They should not go anywhere. Actually, yeah, that would be a fight.
I would even say the Black Goat of the Woods shouldn't even go near there.
Not against. I mean, he'd probably beat what's his name, but
see it like galloping around a table trying to run away from Jack.
Fucking Jack, yeah, just trying to keep that dinner table, running around a car.
Yeah,
this huge monstrosity galloping around an old Hulk car frame. Welcome to the family. Oh no!
Yeah. Fucking sitting at the dinner table and Jack's force feeding it like
this giant
or whatever
monster.
It is.
Spoiled baked beans.
Sticking its knife in its fucking
that
monster.
Old lady's not really an old lady. Shut your
monster like
mouths.
Screaming for help to the deputy, telling him to give him a gun.
All of it's like it has like 20 mouths.
Yeah,
like please give me a gun.
I really want that game now.
I think we've set it up about the combat, but I did want to talk about the detective stuff.
Yes, because that's the best part of the game. That's the highlight.
Best part of the game. And I wanted to tie together a couple of things I had mentioned, like the hokiness, the music choices, the performances, the fact that combat is so loose and slippery, and it's way more focused on uncovering these clues and actually using like it's still fairly guided, but you do actually have to use a little bit of interpretation and read things to kind of figure clues out and solve puzzles. It's trying to recreate a point and click adventure game just in a third person modern action game context, and it really worked on me in that respect. Like I felt this was a closer experience to playing that original point and click adventure than like a Telltale game. Like this feels more like an old school adventure game than a recent Telltale game does to me.
A recent Telltale game, okay? Because I was about to say, I was like, I don't know about that, but
The old Sam and Max ones, no, but like, and maybe Back to the Future, but like everything after that kind of has been like more of. Anyway, it's, I don't know. This one felt more. It just felt like more of the experience of it.
Right.
Telltale feels very flat for obvious reasons. And the interactivity feels a lot more limited.
As it's gotten on, yeah.
But in this one feels more like, and you know, in fairness, original point and click adventure games were also very flat experiences. But I really liked this attempt to recreate it. This appeals to me more than the Telltale ones do. Even though I love the Telltale games, do not get me. I'm not poo-pooing on Telltale. I liked this approach better, and I'm sorry it didn't do better because I like this. I like this kind of game.
I do too.
Where the focus is the detecting and the solving the mystery. And anyway, I mean, there's plenty of games like that out there, like the Sherlock Holmes games by was it Blue Frog, or I forget what it's called.
Oh,
but you know, like Crimes and Punishment, Sherlock Year One. They also did The Sinking City. I like those too. I like those games a lot.
I'm gonna bring up The Sinking City in a minute, but yeah,
I liked this game's approach to trying to recreate the experience of playing a hokey old horror adventure PC game on my dad's computer in 1991.
Yeah, I like the detective work that you do in this as well. Like you'll see something and be like, "Oh, I remember something like that in my notes," and then you'll like go through there and like lo and behold, it's in your notes, and it's just like it's they're not hard puzzles. But it is fun that you're like collecting clues and then using them to solve puzzles.
You do
later.
have to connect them.
Yeah,
like,
you do have to connect them. They're not just.
You do have to be present and read through them, and they highlight keywords for you, but you still have to be paying a little bit of attention. They never go as far as like the super obtuse.
No,
puzzles.
The clues are always in the things that you're trying to solve are always in one room. And all the clues you need are in that room, or you have them already.
Yeah, so in that way, I will say it was a little too easy for me. But other than that,
yeah, I mean that's a little too easy. Yeah, but also I appreciate, especially in a game like this, I would rather it be like that than not tell me I have to go back to another room in order to find this other object in order to solve this puzzle. You know, like I don't have to backtrack.
Well, there's still a lot of it though. Like there are a lot of things. Well, you'll unlock something and you'll be like, oh, I bet this unlocks that thing back in your room, in that other room, and you'll pull up your map, and sure enough, you're like, oh, the map is also useful because it keeps track of puzzles that you can't complete, and then once you have the items to complete it, it'll highlight them in green. So I appreciated that too. Like, so I felt like the puzzles could have been a little bit harder because you had this system that was sort of helping you out. Like, you have all the pieces to solve this puzzle. Just try to figure it out. So the game does tell you, you don't need anything else to do this right now. You have everything you need to solve this. Right. You just need to figure it out. So I liked that too.
I did like that. I did like the code breaking that you had to do. You had your like little code stuff and that your little code book, which tells you like the different numbers with the runes and stuff. That kept coming up. And that kept coming up, and I was like, ooh, I get to solve another puzzle. You know, it's like
and it would take you to it was like that feeling of unlocking a new area in the old adventure game. It would take you to a new place in Jeremy's dream. You're like, oh, I don't know where I'm gonna go next.
Yeah, and this is like that's why I didn't like the combat so much. Like it's not just the combat, because the combat's just mediocre, but I was just marking time until I got to my next puzzle section and got to solve a little bit more mysteries and, you know, find some more clues. That was the good part of this game. That was, I think, the combats, you don't run into it that often.
And the encounters are usually pretty short.
Yeah, they don't throw that many enemies at you. And aside from the last part of the game, there are really no bosses to fight. You're just solving this mystery and occasionally get ambushed by boogans. But yeah, they did the puzzles and the mystery solving. That was what I think 100% of the focus should have been on, because it was very enjoyable. I was like, this is fun. The only problem with that is that it makes the replayability of this game, unless you want to play the other character, very low, because you've solved all the mysteries. To the point where I was like, I started a new game plus to refresh because I played this game like maybe a month ago. I started playing it again, and I was just like, yeah, I'm not feeling this. Like, I already know all the mysteries, and the combat's just okay. I know the story. There's no real, unless I pick it back up as Jodie Comer, because I haven't done that yet. Like I was saying, like, unless you wanted to try one of the other character, like, the replayability is not really there.
Yeah, for sure. The only reason, because I did immediately feel that's like, I really want to just immediately start New Game Plus with Edward with David Harbour, because I want to see how the game is different. And I played for about an hour, well, maybe not, a little bit, 30, 45 minutes of David Harbour's game, enough to see that they do change. Like, the puzzles are all the same, but like I said up top, they change the context, your character interactions around. He interacts primarily with the little girl who you don't see very much in Jodie Comer's game.
Oh, okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. It's sort of like a Resident Evil 2 thing where Leon is paired off with Ada, and Claire is with Sherry.
Dingle Hopper.
I was about to call her Penny. I'm like, what her name is? Brain? Penny?
Yeah, Penny
whatever.
Brain.
Well, how'd you feel about that final boss?
We didn't need it. It should have been like a puzzle or something. Like,
I would have appreciated a puzzle more.
Because this is your final thing and you're showcasing your weakest part of the game. For someone like me that replays a lot of games, I love going back to games, and if I really like them, I want to master them. I want to 100% them. That, and especially in a horror game like this, is very important to me, to be able to go back and replay it, and it just wasn't here.
There are some things you can unlock. I forget what they call them. It's some French word because it's Nolans.
Yeah.
But there are sets of 3 items that you can collect, and the majority of them just unlock more story, but there are a few of them that actually unlock gameplay elements.
Oh.
One of them the first one is a gimme. They give it to you for free because it unlocks the shotgun.
Right, yeah.
But there's other things, and there are like secrets in the game that you can unlock that are gameplay bonuses by collecting these things. So there's an element of that, but it doesn't have the same speedrunning appeal that like a Resident Evil or a Dead Space would, for me anyway. Dead Space doesn't have it as much for me anyway. It's the Resident Evils that are more, because Dead Space is a little too long, but it doesn't have that for me. Like, you remember when Resident Evil 8 came out, and like that first weekend, I think you and I beat it probably 2 times each.
Yeah, that was a fun game.
You get to the end, and you're just like, I want to go right back through it so I can rank up my guns. You know, I think Jason's talked about it too on the one-upsmanship.
Well, what's the difference between that game and this game?
It's fun to shoot.
The combat is fun.
Combat's also 80% of the focus of a Resident Evil game.
Going back to what you were saying about the collectibles, I knew that playing the game, and I forgot about it until just now. So it shows you how much I cared about those collectibles.
Very true, very true. I was sitting there reading everything, man.
I was reading them too, but like I said, the story's very boilerplate. They're trying to resurrect the Black Goat of the Woods, which was the
tree the whole time.
Yeah, which was the tree the whole time, which I like that. You get close to the tree and
cool.
it starts whispering at you.
Cool.
I think that's cool. I think it was like a 7 out of 10 for me. It's just like, it was fun. I don't regret playing it. I enjoyed my time. With the story though, it's the Arkham Horror game that came out recently.
Oh, Mother's Embrace.
Yeah, They're resurrecting Shub-Niggurath. That seems to be like the thing that they're always doing in these games.
Yeah, there's other great old ones.
Yeah,
anyway.
Dunwich. Give me a Dunwich horror in one of these things, man. Come on.
I was excited that Nyarlathotep was in this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool. That's one we don't see. And I did like that Shub-Niggurath looks like it does in the Arkham game. I'm like, oh, that's the drawings from the books.
And it looks
that is exactly
looks the same in the
like.
Arkham turn-based game too. Yeah, they needed an LCU, a Lovecraft cinematic universe, where all the monsters can get together like the
It's all public domain, baby. So
no, let's do it.
Not the Arkham Horror franchise. You can't use that. But
well, no. You don't need the Arkham Horror. I can Like they're just like they just gamified the stories. I don't need their system. We just need the
yeah,
characters.
they have specific characters too. But anyway,
Oh yeah, if we can't have Monterey Jack, there's no reason.
There's no
to
point.
start it.
Crazy Joe Diamond.
Crazy
oh man,
Joe
there's so
Diamond,
many great
eating his
characters
shoelaces.
in Arkham Horror. Jim Culver with his trumpet.
When you sent me that picture of Monterey Jack and John, you're not going to believe this. And it's just me with a mustache.
Yeah, it just looked like you in Indiana Jones cosplay.
Yeah, but yeah.
Look up the illustration of the character Monterey Jack in the second edition of Arkham Horror, the board game.
It looks exactly like me.
Looks like John with a Clark Gable mustache.
I looked good with a mustache. I can't grow one now because I look like Carl from Aqua Teen, but
that's a bold fashion choice. We got to go to Blockbuster.
Please tell me whether or not I should just buy this VHS.
This is the last Blockbuster, right? This is where we whether or not you buy the VHS.
Yeah, if this was what was the design on the Warner Brothers? Remember the old Warner Brothers 80s videos? The sleeves would have like the red lines and dots coming up from the bottom.
Oh yeah.
And then that black and white Warner sign.
Yeah, I thought you were talking about like the gold and black clamshell cases that they used to come in.
Oh no! I'm talking about the sleeve, like the cardboard sleeve,
right?
Like the Outland one, like the Outland.
For sure, yeah. It's all 70s up. Nobody knows what the hell we're talking about.
This feels like a mid 80s movie.
Yes, yeah. This is a Stuart Gordon
This
movie.
is like Lair of the White Worm or something like that.
Castle Freak. This is like a Reanimator. I don't know. I don't think I keep this one. I don't think I buy this VHS. I liked the experience, but ultimately I don't think I'm going to revisit this one that much. I'm just going to go back and play the original.
I am of the same mind. I'm not buying this one. And it's like I said, I don't think it's a bad game. I know I've talked a lot about how the combat's bad, but really I had fun playing it. It's a 7 out of 10 though.
Yeah.
It's like, oh yeah, I played that. That was fun. I didn't think about it after. Like as soon as I put down the game, like about an hour later, I forgot all about it.
Yeah.
It just doesn't leave an impression on you. The detective work is fun, but I'm going to bring this game up. It's a game that we should do on this podcast, and it's a version of this that is 100% better, is The Sinking City, which it's still a very bare bones one, but it's an open world in this Lovecraftian town in Maine. And you go around and there are like side missions that you can do. There's a records office that you need to go back to, or the library to research like things that you're investigating. And the combat's a lot smoother. It still only has about 3 or 4 enemies, but it doesn't matter because that's not the reason you're really playing. And the combat's a lot smoother. I like where this game was going, and that they were trying to get back to what Alone in the Dark originally was. And I don't hate the game. I think it was fun, but it's just not one that's very memorable or, doesn't have that replay value for me. So whereas like the Sinking City does, because like they have a bunch of side missions that you can go back and do if you wanted to do that. Yeah. It's not a buy. It's a definite rental though. I would still like, if you're a fan of these kind of games, it's worth I don't think it's a full price game.
No, it's worth playing on the cheap, or if it comes to Plus, I think you'd probably enjoy it.
Yeah, you'll enjoy your time, and it's not a long game either. It's very short.
I appreciate a short game. I like games I can beat in 9 hours,
especially if it's a horror game. Like I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna say this on like every game that we play. 9 to 10 hours is the sweet spot, I think, for a horror game.
I'd say even less, but yeah, you're right. It's the longer it gets, the less scary it is.
The scariest game I ever played, The Evil Within, way too fucking long. You wanna compact that. Put it down a little bit.
That's a wild ass game.
Keep it down.
Well, if you're here,
your family,
we have a Patreon.
Yeah.
Head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed, where you can pay just $5 to get access to all sorts of cool exclusive podcasts like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. We watch movies with our patrons every Friday night. We have custom podcast tiers. You can get your own shows, commission pretty much whatever you want. So check that out. We also have a store. Go to gamefullyunemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store. Check that out. And leave us a review on our free feeds or wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps a lot.
Yeah.
Now you go.
Have you guys done a double feature on movie night of In the Mouth of Madness and Reanimator?
We've watched both of those movies. I don't know if we did them on the same night, though.
No, those are fucking wild. But In the Mouth of Madness especially. But
yeah, I mean, they're both Lovecraft movies. They're both.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, but like John Carpenter doing one is fucking wild. But like,
Chef's kiss.
If you want to follow me, I'm online. I'm on Blue Sky and Twitter. I'm not checking Twitter right now, probably until after the next presidential election, depending on how that turns out and if we're all still alive. You can find me on both there and Blue Sky at Johnny Rhymes.
Cool. Let's get the hell out of here. Bye. Our episode artwork is provided by Doc Garby. You can follow him on Twitter at _JDBurrows_. Our channel artwork is produced by Michael Vincent Bramley. You can find more of his artwork at instagram.com/mvbramleyart.